Avery Lane realized she was on the wrong plane at the exact moment a 5-year-old girl in a glittery purple hoodie looked at her over the top of a tablet and said, with the calm confidence of a tiny airport official, "You are not Mr. Howard." Avery froze in the aisle. Behind her, a flight attendant with perfect hair and the dead-eyed patience of someone who had already survived 3 boarding delays said, "Ma'am, if you could take your seat, we're closing the door." Avery looked down at her boarding pass, then up at the child, then at the cream leather seat beside the child, then back down at her boarding pass, which now seemed less like a travel document and more like evidence. Seat 4A, Flight 2187, destination, Portland, Maine. She was supposed to be on Flight 2871, destination, Portland, Oregon. There were, Avery decided, too many Portlands. This was not her fault. This was partly her fault. This was mostly the airport's fault for naming 2 cities the same thing and allowing people with severe sleep deprivation to operate near gates. Avery had been awake for 31 hours. She had spilled coffee on her sweater, cried in a restroom that smelled like lemon cleaner and despair, lost 1 earring, found the earring in her boot, and sprinted through Terminal C while dragging a suitcase with 1 wheel that screamed like it was being personally betrayed by every tile. The gate agent had scanned her pass. The scanner had beeped. No one had stopped her. Avery had walked onto the plane, found row 4, and thought, briefly and incorrectly, that first class was much nicer than she remembered. Now the small girl in the window seat was watching her with enormous gray eyes. "You are really not Mr. Howard," the child said. "No," Avery said, because lying to children felt like starting a crime spree. "I am not." The flight attendant's smile sharpened. "Ma'am?" Avery turned. "I think there's been a mistake." The child lifted a small hand. "She can sit with me." Avery looked at her. The flight attendant looked at her. The businessman across the aisle looked over his newspaper with deep interest. "I don't think," Avery began. The child pointed to the empty seat. "Mr. Howard smells like onions and talks on the phone even when phones are supposed to be sleeping. She smells like vanilla and panic." Avery's mouth opened. Nothing came out. The flight attendant pressed her lips together, like she had been trained not to laugh under federal aviation conditions. "Ma'am," she said gently, "we do need everyone seated." "I'm on the wrong plane." The flight attendant blinked. The child nodded, satisfied. "I knew it." Avery held out her boarding pass. The flight attendant took it, scanned it with her eyes, and made the smallest possible noise of professional horror. "Oh, that was not a sound you wanted from airline staff." "Oh?" Avery repeated. The flight attendant glanced toward the front of the plane. "Please stay right here for 1 moment." "That's not comforting." "No, ma'am." The child patted the seat beside her. "You can sit while they panic." "I don't think they're panicking." "They are. Adults do it in their eyebrows." Avery looked at the flight attendant's eyebrows. The child was not wrong. Avery sat because the aisle was blocked. The plane door was apparently moments from closing, and her legs had started sending formal complaints to management. The seat was absurdly comfortable. The child leaned closer. "I'm Poppy," she said. "Hi, Poppy. I'm Avery." "Are you an Omega?" Avery choked on air. Across the aisle, the businessman's newspaper rose higher. "Yes," Avery said carefully, because the child had asked with curiosity, not rudeness. "I am." Poppy nodded. "Mom is an alpha." "Good for Mom." "She is scary." Avery tried not to smile. "Is she?" Poppy nodded again. "But mostly at work people, and men who say sweetheart to waitresses." "Then I support her." Poppy studied Avery's face. "Are you going to cry?" Avery stiffened. The question was too accurate. Avery had already done her crying in the restroom, but grief was rude. It liked encore performances. "No," she said. Poppy tilted her head. That sounded like maybe. It's been a long day. Did someone do a bad thing? Avery looked out the tiny oval window at the airport lights. Her ex-girlfriend had not done one bad thing. She had done a series of bad things with excellent timing. 3 days ago, Cassandra Bell had broken up with Avery by leaving a voice memo. Not even a call. A voice memo, 93 seconds long. Polite, controlled, full of phrases like "not aligned anymore" and "different life directions," and "I hope you know how much I respect you," which was a terrible sentence to hear from someone who had been sharing your bed 2 nights earlier. Then Avery had learned Cassandra had already accepted a job in Seattle and had been planning to move for weeks. Then the landlord had informed Avery that Cassandra's name was the only one on the lease, and Cassandra had given notice. Then Avery's older brother had called from Oregon and said, "Come stay with us for a while. We have a couch and a toddler who bites with love." So Avery had packed 2 suitcases, quit her part-time floral shop job with 3 days' notice, said goodbye to her tiny apartment in Philadelphia, and bought the cheapest ticket she could find to Portland, Oregon. Not Portland, Maine. Because again, too many Portlands. "My ex left," Avery said before she could stop herself. Poppy's face grew solemn. "Like my other mom." Avery turned. The words hung there, soft and heavy. Before Avery could ask anything, a voice came from the front of the plane. "Poppy." The entire first-class cabin changed temperature. Avery knew it before she turned. Alpha. Not in the ridiculous way some cheap novels described it. All force and heat and instinct. This was quieter. A pressure in the air. A clean cedar and rain scent under expensive perfume. A presence that made conversations pause and shoulders straighten. The woman walking down the aisle was tall, dark-haired, and dressed in a charcoal suit that looked as though it had been tailored by someone afraid of disappointing her. Her hair was pulled back in a low knot, but a few strands had loosened near her temples. Her face was sharp and beautiful, not soft, not warm, but controlled in a way that suggested warmth had been placed under lock and key for safekeeping. Her gray eyes landed first on Poppy, then on Avery. Avery immediately understood 2 things. 1. This was Poppy's scary alpha mother. 2. She was going to die on the wrong plane. The alpha stopped beside the row. "Who are you?" she asked. Not shouted, not cruel, but cold enough to make the question feel legally binding. Avery stood too fast, hit her hip on the armrest, and nearly tripped over her own suitcase. "Hi, I'm Avery Lane. I'm not a kidnapper. I'm on the wrong plane." The businessman's newspaper lowered. Poppy said, "She smells like panic." "Poppy," the alpha said. "It's true." Avery held up her boarding pass like a shield. "I was supposed to go to Oregon. Portland, Oregon, not Portland, Maine. I did not know the airport was offering a geography trap." The alpha took the boarding pass from the flight attendant, who had reappeared with an expression of careful doom. The alpha read it once, then again. Her jaw tightened. This passenger boarded with an invalid flight match? The flight attendant paled. "There appears to have been a gate scanning error, Ms. Vale." Vale. Avery knew that name. Everyone knew that name. Rowan Vale, CEO of Vale Atlantic, the luxury hotel group with properties along the East Coast, rumored to be ruthless, brilliant, widowed by scandal, and so private that half the business magazines used the same 3 photos of her from 4 years ago because no one could get new ones. Of course Avery had gotten on the wrong plane and sat beside Rowan Vale's daughter. Of course. Why merely make a mistake when you could make a mistake in first class beside a billionaire alpha mother with cheekbones sharp enough to slice airport glass? Rowan looked at Avery. Avery tried to stand straighter. Her sweater had a coffee stain shaped like a sad continent. Her curls had escaped their clip. She was wearing leggings because cross-country travel had already stolen her dignity. There was a tear in the side pocket of her backpack where a granola bar wrapper was trying to escape. She did not look like a threat. She looked like someone life had thrown into a carry-on bin. Rowan's eyes moved over her once, not lingering, assessing. Then Rowan said, "She needs to leave the aircraft." Poppy grabbed Avery's sleeve with both hands. "No." The word was small. The whole cabin heard it. Rowan looked at her daughter. Avery felt Poppy's fingers tighten in the soft fabric of her cardigan, not hard enough to hurt, but determined enough to make leaving feel like it would break something. "Poppy," Rowan said, voice softer now but still controlled. "She is on the wrong flight. She can come to Maine." Avery made a sound. "I appreciate the hospitality, but I don't think the FAA works like that." Poppy did not look away from her mother. "She said her ex left. She has nowhere. We have an empty seat." The logic was terrible. It was also painfully kind. Avery closed her eyes. Children, she thought, should come with privacy settings. Rowan's gaze returned to Avery. Something changed in it. Not pity. Avery hated pity. Recognition, maybe. Or memory. "I have somewhere," Avery said quickly. "My brother's couch, in Oregon, the correct Portland." The flight attendant glanced toward the front. "Ms. Vale, we have a departure slot." Rowan looked at the boarding pass again. Then at Poppy's hand on Avery's sleeve. Then at Avery's face. For one wild second, Avery thought Rowan might actually let the plane take off with her. Instead, Rowan said, "Poppy, let go." Poppy's eyes filled. Avery's heart cracked. Rowan saw it too. The cold Alpha CEO closed her eyes for half a second, as if searching for a version of herself that knew what to do. When she opened them, her voice was careful. "If Miss Lane stays on this plane, she will be farther from where she needs to go. That is not helping her." Poppy's lip trembled. "But she's sad." "Yes," Rowan said quietly, "and we do not keep sad people by trapping them." Avery looked at Rowan then. Really looked. That was not the sentence she had expected from a woman who could probably buy the airline if annoyed. Poppy looked down at her own hands on Avery's sleeve. For a second, she looked as if letting go was a kind of losing. Then, slowly, she opened her fingers. Avery crouched, ignoring the fact that her knee popped. "Thank you for wanting to help me," she said gently. "That was really kind. But your mom is right. I have to get to the place I meant to go." Poppy stared at her. "Will you be okay?" Avery wanted to say yes. Easy, adult, polite. But Poppy's eyes were too serious. So Avery said, "Not today, but eventually." Poppy nodded, accepting the truth like a tiny judge. Then she reached into the pocket of her hoodie and pulled out a sticker. A purple star. She pressed it onto Avery's coffee-stained sweater. "For eventually," Poppy said. Avery's throat closed. "Thank you." Rowan looked away. It was quick, but Avery saw it. The Alpha was not as cold as everyone said. Or maybe cold was what happened when warmth had nowhere safe to go. Airport staff escorted Avery off the plane with many apologies and no clear plan. The door closed behind her. The plane pushed back 15 minutes late. Avery stood at the gate, holding her wrong boarding pass, wearing a purple star sticker over a coffee stain, and watched the aircraft roll away with Poppy's face visible in the first-class window. Poppy waved. Avery waved back. Then the plane disappeared into the dark. The gate agent, a young beta man named Tyler whose hair looked like it had lost a fight with his headset, typed furiously, "I am so sorry, Ms. Lane. This should not have happened." Avery laughed once. "That is becoming the theme of my week. We can rebook you." "To Oregon?" He winced. "Tomorrow morning." Avery stared at him. "I don't have money for a hotel." His fingers hovered over the keyboard. "Because this was a carrier error, we can issue a voucher. Let me check availability. Avery's phone buzzed. Cassandra. For one impossible second, hope rose like a reflex. Then Avery hated herself for it. The text read, I heard you left the apartment already. Please don't make this harder by being dramatic. I think clean breaks are healthiest. Avery stared at the message. Clean breaks. She had packed her life into 2 suitcases in 3 days because Cassandra had turned their shared home into an ending and now wanted cleanliness. The gate agent was still typing. Avery's vision blurred. Not here, she told herself. Not in front of Tyler. Not while wearing a purple star given by a child whose mother had just taught her that helping someone did not mean trapping them. Avery typed back. You made the break. I'm cleaning up after it. Then she blocked Cassandra. Her hands shook after she did it. But only for a minute. Tyler found a hotel voucher, a meal voucher, and a rebooked flight for the next morning. Avery thanked him so sincerely he looked embarrassed. The airport hotel smelled like carpet cleaner and tired travelers. Avery checked in with her vouchers, dragged her screaming suitcase into the elevator, and collapsed onto the bed without taking off her shoes. At 2:17 a.m., she woke up and cried. Not beautifully. Not dramatically. She cried because she was 27, broke, single, between homes, going to the wrong side of the country, and the only person who had asked if she would be okay that day was a child in yellow sneakers on the wrong plane. In the morning, Avery made it to the correct Portland. Oregon was gray, rainy, and full of pine trees that looked like they knew more than she did. Her brother Sam picked her up at the airport in a minivan with cracker crumbs in the cup holders and a dinosaur sticker on the dashboard. He hugged her so hard her ribs complained. You look terrible, he said lovingly. You look like fatherhood ate you. It did. Get in. Nora made soup. Nora was Sam's wife, a beta woman with sharp eyes, warm hands, and the ability to make soup that tasted like emotional stability. Their toddler, Ben, did indeed bite with love. He greeted Avery by sinking tiny teeth into her sleeve and laughing like a villain. For 3 weeks, Avery slept on their couch, applied for jobs, helped with Ben, and tried to figure out who she was when she was not Cassandra's girlfriend, not a florist with a closing shop, not a person whose address belonged to someone else. She kept the purple star sticker. It lost some stickiness, so she taped it inside her journal. Under it, she wrote, For eventually. She thought about Poppy sometimes. The serious eyes, the glittery hoodie, the way she had grabbed Avery's sleeve like sadness was something you could prevent from leaving the aisle. She thought about Rowan Vale too, which was deeply inconvenient. Rowan's cold voice, Rowan's controlled hands, Rowan saying, We do not keep sad people by trapping them. Avery told herself it was normal to think about a person who had been part of a spectacular travel error. It was not romantic. It was narrative residue. Still, when she remembered Rowan's voice, she also remembered the way the alpha had looked away from the purple star, as if tenderness were something she did not trust herself to hold in public. That was inconvenient. So Avery did the least romantic thing possible and looked up Rowan Vale on her phone. Business articles, hotel openings, a photo of Rowan in a black suit at a charity gala, a rare older picture of her with an Omega woman named Elise Vale, who had died 3 years earlier after a long illness, a few carefully blurred photos of Poppy, always shielded from cameras. Avery closed the search. Grief recognized grief. That was all. 2 months passed. Avery found part-time work at a small flower shop in Portland, Oregon. The owner, June, was a 70-year-old beta woman who wore overalls every day and said things like, "Roses are for amateurs," and men apologizing badly. Avery loved her immediately. The shop was called The Green Finch. It had creaky floors, buckets of wildflowers, and a back room where Avery could drink tea during breaks and pretend she was not rebuilding her life 1 hourly shift at a time. She missed having her own apartment. She missed knowing where things went. She did not miss Cassandra as much as she feared she would. She missed the idea of being chosen. That was different. One rainy Thursday, June handed Avery a stack of invoices and said, "You have computer eyes." "I don't know what that means." "It means mine are decorative. Check these." Avery sat at the counter, opened the shop email, and froze. There was a message from an address ending in valeatlantic.com. Subject: Floral Consultation Inquiry. Avery stared. No, absolutely not. June leaned over her shoulder. That rich people? Possibly. Good. Charge rich people correctly. Avery opened the email. Dear Miss Lane, my name is Rowan Vale. We met briefly during an airline boarding error in Philadelphia 8 weeks ago. My daughter Poppy has asked whether the Omega with the purple star made it to Oregon safely. I understand this is unusual. You are under no obligation to respond. I obtained your contact through the airline after filing a passenger incident report and asking them to forward my message only if you consented to being contacted. They confirmed you allowed contact for follow-up regarding the incident. Poppy remembers that you worked with flowers. Vale Atlantic is opening a small coastal property near Cannon Beach next month. The local event florist withdrew due to illness. If the green finch is available for a paid consultation, I would be interested in discussing arrangements for the opening weekend. If you prefer not to engage, I will respect that fully. Sincerely, Rowan Vale. Avery read it once, then again. Then a third time because her brain had started playing hold music. June squinted. Is that a job or a romance novel? A consultation, Avery said too quickly. It's professional. Her daughter asked if I made it safely. June's expression softened, then sharpened. Still charge correctly. Avery replied, after an hour of drafting, deleting, panicking, and making tea she forgot to drink. Dear Ms. Vale, I made it to Oregon safely. Please tell Poppy thank you for asking, and thank her again for the purple star. The green finch may be available for a paid consultation depending on dates, scope, and budget. I've copied June Mercer, the shop owner, so she can review business details. Best, Avery Lane. June read it and nodded. Good. Calm. No swooning. I wasn't swooning. You used best. That's how professionals hide swooning. The consultation became a video call. Avery expected Rowan to have an assistant. Instead, Rowan appeared on screen herself, seated in a quiet office with a view of the ocean behind her. Her hair was down this time, dark waves over one shoulder. She wore a cream sweater instead of a suit. It was unfair, deeply unfair. Poppy appeared 2 minutes later, climbing into Rowan's lap without asking and holding up Captain Broccoli's cousin, a stuffed rabbit in a raincoat. You lived, Poppy said. Avery smiled before she could stop herself. I did. Did you go to the right Portland? Yes. Good. Mom said not to ask if your ex was still bad. Rowan closed her eyes. Avery bit her lip. June, sitting beside Avery on the shop side of the call, made a sound that might have been a cough or delight. Rowan said, Poppy. What? I didn't ask. Avery laughed. Poppy smiled, small and pleased. Rowan looked at Avery through the screen, and for 1 second the professional call became something warmer. Avery noticed a loose strand of dark hair near Rowan's cheek. She noticed the cream sweater. She noticed, with deep irritation at herself, that Rowan looked less like a headline and more like a tired woman trying not to hope too visibly. I'm glad you arrived safely, Rowan said. Thank you. Poppy leaned toward the camera. Did the star help? Avery reached for her journal, opened it to the taped sticker, and held it up. Poppy gasped. Rowan went very still. I kept it, Avery said. For eventually. Poppy whispered. Mom? I see, Rowan said softly. June looked at Avery. Avery looked at June. June mouthed, "Charge rich people correctly," then dabbed at her eye with a tissue. The Cannon Beach project was legitimate. The Vale Atlantic property was a small luxury inn being restored from an old seaside lodge. Rowan wanted flowers that did not look like a corporate gala. Poppy wanted things that look like fairies sleep there. June wanted a contract, deposit, travel reimbursement, and clear weather contingencies. Rowan agreed to all of it. Avery and June drove to Cannon Beach 2 weeks later in June's old truck with buckets, shears, ribbon, and more floral foam than anyone should admit to owning. The inn sat on a bluff above the Pacific, cedar-shingled and elegant without being cold. Waves crashed below. Seagrass moved in the wind. The sky was huge and gray and silver. Avery stepped out of the truck and felt something inside her loosen. She had not meant to come west. But the ocean did not care how she arrived. It simply kept arriving too. Rowan met them on the front porch. In person, away from the plane, she was even more controlled. But there were differences now. Her suit was softer, navy instead of charcoal. Her hair was loose under a wool coat. Her face was still reserved, but her eyes moved first to Avery's face, not her clothes, not her usefulness. "Miss Lane," she said. "Avery is fine." A pause. Rowan, then. June stepped forward. June Mercer. No relation unless you're secretly from a family of flower shop owners, which seems unlikely. Rowan shook her hand. "Sadly, no. Shame. Would have improved your aura." Avery wanted to disappear into the seagrass. Rowan looked at June for a second. Then said, "I have received similar feedback." Avery choked on a laugh. Poppy ran onto the porch, wearing a yellow raincoat and boots with whales on them. "Avery!" She said it like they were old friends. Avery crouched as Poppy stopped in front of her. "Hi, Poppy. You're real." "I try." Poppy studied her face. "You look less panic." "I feel less panic." "Good. Mom said you are here for flowers, and not because I asked every day." Rowan's jaw tightened. June looked delighted. Avery smiled gently. Both can be true. Poppy nodded, satisfied, then held out a drawing. It showed a plane, a purple star, a woman with curly hair, a small girl, and a tall dark figure labeled MOM, scary but nice. Avery looked at Rowan. Rowan looked like she wanted the porch to swallow her. "Accurate," Avery said. Poppy beamed. The opening weekend gave Avery no time to be awkward. There were arrangements for the lobby, dining room, guest cottages, porch railings, and a welcome dinner. June supervised like a cheerful dictator. Avery spent hours with buckets of foxglove, white roses, lavender, eucalyptus, and wild coastal greenery. Poppy followed whenever allowed, carrying safe ribbon pieces and giving opinions. "Too fancy." "Too sad." "That one looks like a grandma." "That one is good. It looks like a fairy got married, but not in a boring way." Rowan passed through occasionally, always busy, always needed by someone with a clipboard. Each time, Poppy's attention shifted toward her like a compass. Each time, Rowan tried to pause. Not always successfully. Once, Poppy held up a small bundle of lavender and said, "Mom, smell." Rowan, on the phone, lifted one finger in the universal adult signal for 1 second. Poppy's face closed. Avery saw it. Rowan saw it 1 second later. She ended the call mid-sentence. "I'm sorry," Rowan said, crossing the room and crouching. "I made work louder than you. May I smell it now?" Poppy looked at the lavender, then at her mother, then held it out. Rowan smelled it with complete seriousness. "It smells like the color purple," Poppy giggled. Avery turned away and pretended to adjust ribbon because seeing Rowan correct herself quickly was becoming a problem. A beautiful problem. That evening, After Poppy went to bed, Avery found Rowan alone in the half-finished dining room. The tables were set but not complete. Candles waited unlit. Flowers stood in buckets near the windows. Outside, the Pacific darkened under a bruised violet sky. Rowan stood near one of the arrangements, looking at the lavender like it had accused her of something. "You did well today," Avery said. Rowan turned. "I nearly didn't. But you caught it." Rowan looked back at the flowers. Poppy learned to expect people to leave mid-sentence. Avery's chest tightened. "Her other mom?" "Elise," Rowan said softly. Avery waited. Rowan's voice stayed calm, but the calm had weight. Elise was ill for a long time. Before that, she was warm, loud, impossible to schedule, and beloved by everyone who met her. When the illness got worse, she withdrew. Not because she did not love Poppy, because she was trying to spare her the fear. Rowan's mouth tightened. It did not spare her. It only made Poppy believe love vanished quietly. Avery stood still. "I'm sorry," she said. Rowan nodded once. "After Elise died, I tried to become consistent enough for both of us. Every appointment, every meal, every bedtime, every school form. I thought if Poppy never had to wonder where I was, she would feel safe." "Did she?" "Sometimes." Rowan looked at Avery. "Sometimes she looked at me like I had become a schedule wearing her mother's face." Avery's throat ached. "That's a harsh thing to say about yourself." "It is an accurate thing to fear." Avery moved closer, but not too close. "Rowan, your daughter grabbed my sleeve on a plane because she saw someone sad and wanted to help. That doesn't come from a child who only knows schedules." Rowan's eyes shifted to her. Avery continued. "She's kind, direct, weird in the best way. She notices people. Some of that is grief, some of that is you." Rowan looked away. For a moment, Avery thought she had said too much. Then Rowan said, "You speak like a florist." Avery blinked. "Excuse me?" "You notice what is growing under the damage." Avery's face warmed. That was dangerously poetic for a hotel CEO. "I apologize." "Don't." The silence after that was softer than it should have been. Then June shouted from the kitchen, "If either of you is having a meaningful moment, do it after someone tells me where the extra vases are." Avery closed her eyes. Rowan's mouth curved. "I should help," Avery said. "Yes." Neither moved for 1 second. Then both moved at once and nearly collided. Rowan stepped back immediately. Avery laughed. "Careful," Rowan said. "I was. I meant me." Avery looked at her. Rowan's eyes held hers. There it was. Not a confession. Not yet. But something. Avery spent that night in the staff cottage with June snoring lightly in the next bed and the ocean roaring beyond the windows. She stared at the ceiling and thought, absolutely not. Rowan Vale was not just an alpha. She was a grieving mother, a CEO, a client, and a woman whose daughter had already braided herself into Avery's heart with one purple sticker. Absolutely not. In the morning, Poppy asked Avery to help her choose flowers for Elise. Avery froze. They were in the garden behind the inn, where sea wind bent the tall grasses and bees moved slowly among late summer blooms. Poppy held Captain Broccoli against her chest. "Mom says we can put flowers by the water," Poppy said. "For Mama Elise. I want good ones." Avery crouched. "Do you want me to help, or do you want me to just hold the basket while you choose?" Poppy considered. "Both." "Good plan." Rowan stood a few feet away, hands in her coat pockets, face unreadable. But her scent had shifted again, grief moving under cedar like rain under soil. Poppy chose lavender because it smelled purple, white daisies because they were not bossy, rosemary because June said remembrance, and Poppy liked that word. One small yellow rose because Elise had apparently loved yellow. Avery tied them with soft blue ribbon. Poppy carried the flowers down the path to the edge of the bluff with Rowan on one side and Avery on the other. Avery kept a respectful distance. This was not hers. At the water, Poppy held the flowers and looked at Rowan. "Can Avery stay?" Rowan did not answer for her. She looked at Avery. Avery said, "Only if you both want me to." Poppy nodded. Rowan's voice was quiet. "You may stay." So Avery stayed. Poppy placed the flowers near a smooth stone bench overlooking the ocean. "Hi, Mama Elise," she whispered. "I met the wrong plane lady. She's good at flowers. Mom likes her, but she is pretending in her face." Avery nearly swallowed her own tongue. Rowan went completely still. Poppy continued, "I miss you. I still don't like when people say you're watching over me, because that is creepy. But I hope you can see the yellow rose." The wind moved gently. Rowan closed her eyes. Avery looked at the sea and gave them privacy the only way she could, by staying quiet. After a while, Poppy leaned against Rowan. Rowan's arm came around her carefully. Then Poppy reached back without looking and took Avery's hand. Avery's heart split open. Rowan saw. Of course she saw. Avery expected the alpha to gently correct her daughter, to make a boundary, to protect the sacredness of grief from a woman they had met twice. Instead, Rowan's eyes softened with something almost unbearable. Poppy squeezed Avery's fingers. Avery squeezed back. Not as a replacement. Never that. As someone present. Sometimes presence was all a person could offer. Sometimes it was enough. The opening dinner went beautifully, until Cassandra arrived. Avery saw her across the dining room and felt the world tilt. Cassandra Bell stood near the entrance in a cream blazer, hair sleek, face composed, holding a press badge. Of course she had become a freelance travel writer. Of course she had been assigned to cover the Vail Atlantic opening. Of course the universe had a sick sense of narrative symmetry. June noticed first. "Oh," she said, "is that the voice memo?" Avery gripped a vase. "Yes." "Want me to hit her with eucalyptus?" "No. Want is different from should." Still no. Cassandra saw Avery. Her eyes widened. Then, with the confidence of someone who had once known exactly where Avery kept the mugs, she walked over. "Avery. Cassandra. You're here." That's how seeing works. June coughed into her hand. Cassandra's smile tightened. "I didn't expect you to be working this event. I didn't expect you to end our relationship with a voice memo and take me off a lease, but here we are, both surprised." Cassandra flushed. "Avery, can we not do this in public?" Avery looked around. The dining room buzzed with guests, soft music, clinking glasses. Rowan stood near the entrance speaking with a local official. Poppy sat at a children's table making a napkin hat for Captain Broccoli. Avery could feel old instincts rising. Make it smooth. Make it smaller. Don't embarrass anyone. Then she remembered a little girl on a plane asking if she would be okay. She remembered blocking Cassandra in an airport hotel. She remembered being sad and surviving anyway. "I'm working," Avery said. "If you need something about the flowers, June is the owner. If you need something personal, email me and I may or may not answer." Cassandra blinked. "You're angry." Avery smiled. "Yes, that happens when someone detonates your housing." Cassandra lowered her voice. "I said I was sorry. You said you respected me. That's the same thing." "No," Avery said. "It really isn't." Across the room, Rowan looked over. Her eyes moved from Avery's face to Cassandra's posture. Avery saw the alpha's expression cool. Rowan started toward them. Avery gave the smallest shake of her head. Rowan stopped. The fact that she stopped mattered more than if she had rushed in. Cassandra followed Avery's glance and saw Rowan. Something changed in her face. Recognition. Calculation. "Oh, Cassandra said softly. I see. Avery's stomach turned. No, you don't. Cassandra's voice sharpened under the sweetness. You always did need someone to choose you quickly after being hurt. June made a dangerous sound. Avery felt the words land. They found old bruises. For 1 second, she was back in the apartment, listening to a voice memo, wondering how she had missed the signs. Then Poppy's small voice cut through. That was mean. Everyone froze. Poppy stood beside the table. Captain Broccoli clutched to her chest, napkin hat crooked. Cassandra looked down at her, startled. Rowan crossed the room now, not rushing, not storming, present. Poppy, Rowan said gently. Poppy looked at Cassandra. Avery didn't need choosing quickly. She needed the correct Portland. The dining room went silent. June made a strangled sound. Avery pressed a hand over her mouth. Rowan closed her eyes for 1 second, probably asking the universe for patience. Cassandra looked humiliated. Avery crouched beside Poppy. Thank you for wanting to defend me, she said softly. But this is an adult conversation. Poppy frowned. Adults are doing it badly. Yes, Avery said. That happens. Rowan looked at Cassandra. Ms. Bell, if you are here in a professional capacity, my media director can assist you. If you are here to approach Ms. Lane personally, after she asked you not to, you will leave. Cassandra's face tightened. I didn't realize employees came with security. Avery stood. Rowan's expression went cold. But Avery spoke first. I am not her employee, Avery said. I'm a contracted florist working through the Green Finch. I have my own invoice, my own ride, my own room, and my own voice, and I'm asking you to leave me alone. Cassandra looked at her. Really looked. Maybe for the first time in a long time. Then she stepped back. Fine, she said. She left before dessert. The room slowly remembered how to breathe. Poppy looked up at Avery. Did I do bad? Avery crouched again. You did protective. Protective is kind, but sometimes grown-ups need to handle their own hard things. I'm not mad. Poppy nodded solemnly. Captain Broccoli is still mad. That's allowed. Rowan looked at Avery. Are you okay? Avery exhaled. The answer surprised her. Yes. Not perfect, not untouched, but yes. Rowan nodded, and in her eyes Avery saw the effort it had taken not to take over. Good, Rowan said quietly. June leaned close to Avery and whispered, the correct Portland line was devastating. I'm putting that child in charge of marketing. By the end of the weekend, the inn looked like a place made for second chances. Guests loved the flowers. June got 3 future bookings. Poppy declared the fairy wedding arrangements acceptable. Rowan personally thanked every staff member, and when she thanked Avery, her voice lowered just enough to make Avery's pulse misbehave. Your work changed the building, Rowan said. Avery looked around the lobby, where coastal greenery softened the stone fireplace, and lavender filled the air. It was already beautiful. It was impressive, Rowan said. Now it feels less alone. Avery looked at her. Rowan's face remained composed, but the words had cost her something. Avery wanted to step closer. She didn't. Client. Mother. Grief. Distance. All real. The next morning, Avery and June were loading the truck when Poppy ran down the porch steps. Avery! Avery turned. Poppy held out a small envelope. For eventually, she said. Avery accepted it carefully. Inside was another purple star sticker. This one had tiny silver moons on it. Avery's throat tightened. Thank you. Poppy hugged her waist. Avery froze, then hugged her back. Rowan stood on the porch, watching. Avery saw the ache in her face. The fear, too. Not jealousy, not ownership. Fear that Poppy was attaching to someone who might leave. Avery gently released Poppy and crouched. Poppy, I live in Oregon now. I can't be here all the time. I know. And your mom is your mom. I know. And I'm not replacing anyone. Poppy frowned. I didn't ask you to. Avery blinked. Poppy looked offended. You're Avery. That's already a thing. Rowan looked away quickly. June whispered, Good Lord. Avery laughed through the burn in her eyes. You're right, Avery said. That is already a thing. Poppy smiled. As Avery stood, Rowan came down the steps. Thank you for this weekend, she said. Thank you for hiring us. You earned it. I know. Rowan's mouth curved slightly. Good. Avery clutched the envelope. Tell Poppy she can email me through you, if that's okay, and if you want, and if it's healthy. I don't know the rules here. Rowan studied her. The rule is that Poppy's attachments should be honest, age-appropriate, and not built on promises adults cannot keep. Avery nodded. Rowan continued. An occasional supervised email seems honest. Okay. And Avery? Yes. I would also like to email you. Avery's heart did something ridiculous. For floral reasons? Rowan's eyes held hers. At first, perhaps. June dropped a bucket into the truck very loudly. Avery smiled despite herself. At first, perhaps, she repeated. The emails began with flowers. Rowan asked about seasonal arrangements for the inn's winter packages. Avery responded with suggestions. Pine, white amaryllis, dried orange, cedar, silver brunia. Rowan asked detailed questions that were probably unnecessary. Avery answered them anyway. Then Poppy sent a drawing of Captain Broccoli visiting a haunted lighthouse. Then Avery sent back a photo of the purple star sticker on her journal. Then Rowan wrote, Poppy says the star is doing its job. Avery replied, Please tell Poppy eventually is improving. Rowan answered, I am glad. Avery stared at those 3 words for too long. By November, the emails had become letters hiding inside business correspondence. Rowan wrote about Poppy starting art therapy and declaring that feelings were messy but maybe not illegal. Avery wrote about June teaching her the difference between grieving a person and grieving the version of yourself who believed them. Rowan wrote about the inn's first storm and how the building groaned but held. Avery wrote about Oregon rain and Ben biting fewer people. Riley read one thread over Avery's shoulder and said, This is emotional foreplay for people with excellent grammar. Avery threw a pillow at her. In December, Rowan invited the Green Finch to design flowers for a small winter charity dinner at the Cannon Beach Inn. June said yes before Avery could panic. Professional opportunity, June said. You just want to see the rich alpha again. I want to see the child with the rabbit. The alpha is a bonus. The winter dinner was smaller, quieter, and covered in candlelight. Avery arrived with evergreen garlands and a strict speech to herself about professionalism. Then Poppy ran into the lobby wearing a red sweater dress and shouted, Avery, Mom learned to make pancakes and only burned 2. Professionalism became difficult. Rowan appeared behind her in a dark green dress that made Avery's entire brain briefly forget plant names. 2 is progress, Rowan said. Poppy tugged Avery's sleeve. Can you come see the tree? The tree stood in the library, tall and glowing with warm white lights. Most ornaments were elegant silver and glass. Then there were several handmade ones, clearly created by Poppy. A felt rabbit, a paper airplane, a purple star, and a lopsided flower, with Avery's name written on the back. Avery touched it gently. Poppy whispered, You're on the family tree. Rowan went still. Avery's breath caught. Poppy looked between them. Is that not okay? Avery crouched. It's very sweet. Sweet good or sweet like adults are about to cry? Both. Poppy nodded. Acceptable. Later, during the dinner, a donor made the mistake of asking Rowan if she planned to settle down again for Poppy's sake. Avery saw Rowan's expression freeze. She expected a cold answer. Instead, Rowan said, "Poppy does not require a performance of family. She requires people who stay truthfully." The donor blinked, laughed awkwardly, and changed the subject. Avery felt those words land deep. People who stay truthfully. After the dinner, Rowan found Avery in the library, where Avery was adjusting the garland over the fireplace. Poppy had fallen asleep upstairs. June was packing supplies. The inn had quieted around them. Rowan stood near the tree. "I need to ask something," she said. Avery's fingers tightened around the ribbon. "Okay. Would you have dinner with me tomorrow?" "Not as a client, not for flowers, just dinner." Rowan's voice stayed controlled, but her hands gave her away. "You can say no. You can say it is too complicated. You can say yes and change your mind." Avery turned slowly. Every warning lit up at once. Alpha mother. Child attached. Grief. Distance. Power. The risk of becoming someone's soft landing before she knew if they were truly ready. "What about Poppy?" Avery asked. "She will have dinner with Mr. Finch and then watch a movie. She knows I am asking you to dinner. She does not know what you will say." "You told her?" "I told her I wanted to ask. She said adults are slow and should use calendars." Avery laughed despite her nerves. Rowan's face softened. Avery looked at the purple star ornament on the tree. Then back at Rowan. "I want to say yes," she said. Rowan waited. "I'm scared because I care about Poppy, and because I like you, and because I don't want to become a missing person in a child's life if this goes badly." Rowan's expression changed. Pain, respect, both. "I also don't want to be chosen because I helped during a hard time." "You wouldn't be." "How do you know?" Rowan looked at the fire, then at Avery. She said softly, "On the plane, when you told my daughter the truth instead of making a pretty promise. At the inn, when you let her hold your hand without pretending grief was yours to fix. In the dining room, when you told Cassandra you had your own voice and stopped me from using mine before you had finished. I do not want a caretaker. I do not want a replacement for Elise. I do not want someone to make my house look whole for guests." Her voice lowered. "I want to know you." Avery's eyes burned. Rowan added, slowly, clearly, with exits. Avery laughed through the ache. "That is the most romantic legal language I've ever heard. I have lawyers." "It shows." Unfortunately, Avery looked at her for a long moment. "Yes," she said. "Dinner." Rowan's breath changed. "Tomorrow." "Tomorrow," Avery agreed. Rowan arrived without security. Avery noticed. Rowan wore a soft black sweater, no suit jacket, hair loose. She looked still composed, but less armored. They talked for 3 hours. About Avery growing up in a loud house with 3 brothers, and learning to make flowers quiet enough for grief and bright enough for weddings. About Rowan meeting Elise at a hotel opening when Elise criticized the lobby plants and then fixed them herself. About losing someone slowly. About being left suddenly. About how both kinds of absence changed the rooms they happened in. Avery told Rowan about Cassandra. Not the clean, funny version. The real one. How Cassandra's voice memo had made Avery feel like she had been professionally dismissed from her own life. How losing the apartment had embarrassed her more than the breakup. How she had mistaken someone's calm for commitment. Rowan listened. Not like a CEO collecting information. Like a woman who knew silence could be respectful if it did not become distance. When Avery finished, Rowan said, "She should have spoken to you face to face." Avery smiled sadly. Yes. And she should not have made you leave a home without warning. No. And I am trying very hard not to offer to ruin her credit. Avery stared. Rowan looked completely serious. Then Avery laughed so hard people turned around. Don't ruin her credit. I said I was trying. You're scary. I have been told, but less than advertised. Rowan's smile was small and real. Careful, that could damage my brand. After dinner, they walked along the beach with their coats pulled tight against the wind. The moon was thin. The waves were loud. Avery's shoes sank into the sand. Rowan walked beside her, close enough for warmth, not close enough to assume. Avery liked that. She hated how much she liked that. At the edge of the water, Avery stopped. Can I ask something hard? Yes. If Elise were alive. Rowan closed her eyes briefly. Avery almost apologized. Rowan opened them. If Elise were alive, I would still be married to her, Rowan said. The answer hurt. It also healed something, because it was honest. Avery nodded. Rowan continued. And because she is not, I had to learn that loving again would not mean loving her less. I am still learning. Avery looked at the waves. I don't want to compete with a ghost. You won't, Rowan said. Elise was my wife, Poppy's mother, part of our home. She is not your rival. She is our history. Our. Avery heard it. So did Rowan. The alpha inhaled slowly. I'm sorry if that was too much. It wasn't. Avery's throat tightened. It was honest. Rowan looked at her. Avery stepped closer. Not all the way. Halfway. Rowan did not move. Avery smiled faintly. This is where you ask. Rowan's eyes softened. May I kiss you? Yes. The kiss was warm despite the cold air. Soft. Careful. Avery felt Rowan's restraint like a form of tenderness. Not distance. Not fear. A question held open even after the answer. When they pulled apart, Avery laughed quietly. What? Rowan asked. I got on the wrong plane. Rowan's mouth curved. I remember. And somehow this is where I landed. Rowan touched her forehead gently to Avery's. Do you regret the geography trap? Not tonight. Rowan kissed her again. Not deeper. Not demanding. Just enough to say, I am here, and you are free. And we are choosing this moment together. Poppy found out about the kiss because adults were terrible at hiding happiness. The next morning at breakfast, she looked from Rowan to Avery to June and said, Something happened. June drank coffee very loudly. Rowan set down her fork. Something? Poppy narrowed her eyes. Your face is less sharp. Avery nearly spit out her tea. Rowan said, That is not a measurable category. It is on your face. June nodded. Child's got evidence. Poppy looked at Avery. Did you kiss Mom? Avery covered her face. Rowan said, Poppy. What? I need to know if I should make a chart. Avery lowered her hands. A chart? Adults get weird when romance happens. Charts help. Rowan looked pained. We are not making a romance chart. Poppy considered. A calendar? No. A feelings map? Avery said. Honestly, that one sounds useful. Rowan looked betrayed. Poppy grinned. Avery crouched beside her chair. Your mom and I went on a date, she said. We like each other. We are going slowly, and you do not have to do anything about it. Poppy studied her. Are you going to leave if it gets hard? Avery's smile faded. There it was. The real question. Rowan's hand tightened on her mug. Avery answered carefully. I might have to go home sometimes. I live in Oregon. I have work. But I won't disappear, and I won't make promises that I'm not ready to keep. Poppy looked at Rowan. Mom? Rowan's voice was soft. Avery and I are adults. We will take care of the adult feelings. Your job is to be Poppy. Poppy thought about that. Can Poppy still email Avery? Avery smiled. Yes. Can Poppy still say if adults are doing romance badly? Rowan sighed. I suspect no one can stop you. Good. They moved slowly after that. Slower than Gossip would have preferred. Avery returned to Oregon and kept working at the Green Finch. Rowan went back to Maine, New York, meetings, hotels, and parenting. They called at reasonable hours, visited when schedules allowed, and let Poppy email drawings while Avery mailed pressed flowers back. Rowan once sent a very serious message asking whether daisies were passive-aggressive. Avery replied, only if arranged by someone passive-aggressive. Riley called the whole thing long-distance yearning for people with calendars. June called it good compost. By spring, Avery had built a small life in Oregon that belonged to her. She rented a tiny studio above a bakery. She bought second-hand shelves. She put the first purple star sticker in a frame by the window and the second inside her journal. She started designing arrangements under her own name for weddings, memorials, and small coastal events. One day, June handed her a set of keys. Avery stared. What's this? The shop, June said. I have keys. Not those keys. Partner keys. Avery blinked. June leaned on the counter. I'm 70. My knees hate me. You're good with flowers, clients, grief, and people who think beige roses are a personality. I want to make you junior partner. We'll do it properly. Lawyer, accountant, papers, no emotional handshake nonsense. Avery's eyes filled. June? Don't cry on the ranunculus. I can't afford to buy in. You can buy in slowly, sweat equity, profit share, will be boring and legal. Avery laughed through tears. That night, she called Rowan. I have news, Avery said. Rowan's face on the screen sharpened with attention. Good or bad? Good. June wants to make me junior partner. Poppy screamed from somewhere off camera. Rowan smiled before turning. Poppy says congratulations. I heard. Rowan looked back. I'm proud of you. Avery's throat tightened. Not I can help. Not I'll invest. Not let me solve this. Just proud. Thank you, Avery said. Rowan hesitated. Do you want advice, resources, celebration, or only listening? Avery stared at the screen. Then smiled. Look at you. I have been coached. By who? My daughter, Mr. Finch, a therapist, a hostile goose at the inn. A goose? It had strong boundaries. Avery laughed, then said, celebration, and later maybe resources, but not money. Understood. And no buying the building. Rowan looked away. Avery gasped. Rowan. It was a preliminary thought. No. Understood. You are impossible. I am improving. You are. They celebrated 2 weeks later in Oregon at Avery's tiny studio above the bakery. Rowan stayed at a hotel because Avery said her apartment was not ready for overnight guests, and Rowan said, Thank you for telling me. Avery kissed her in the doorway for that sentence alone. Poppy inspected the framed purple star by the window and nodded like a museum curator. You kept it fancy. It deserved a frame. At the Green Finch, June made Rowan scrub buckets to prove she was not useless. Rowan did it with grave focus, while Poppy tied ribbons around everything that stood still. Then Cassandra walked past the shop window. For a second, the old pane lifted its head. Avery looked around, June arguing with a supplier, Poppy turning eucalyptus into a scarf for Captain Broccoli, and Rowan waiting beside the sink with soap on her wrist, noticing without rushing in. Cassandra gave a small, awkward nod. Avery nodded back. Then Cassandra kept walking. No collapse, no speech. Avery's hands stayed steady, Not because Cassandra no longer mattered at all, but because Avery mattered more now. She turned back to the flowers. Rowan came beside her, still leaving space. "Are you okay?" "Yes," Avery said, and smiled because it was true. "Actually," Poppy shouted, "Mom, the rabbit is allergic to eucalyptus." Rowan looked deeply concerned. "Is that medically verified?" Avery laughed and handed her a towel. Summer brought the first real test. Rowan invited Avery to Maine for Poppy's birthday week. Not just a visit. A family week. Beach picnic, a small party, dinner with Rowan's in-laws, and flowers for Elise. Avery almost said no. Not because she did not want to go. Because she did. Too much. She was afraid of stepping into a family shape and finding out she was only welcome when she fit neatly. Rowan listened on the phone without interrupting. Then said, "You can come for part of it. You can stay at the inn in your own room. You can skip any event. You can leave early. You can say yes now and change your mind later." Avery closed her eyes. "With exits," she said. "With exits. I want to come." Rowan's expression softened through the screen. "Then we'll be glad to have you." Poppy's birthday party took place on the lawn behind the Cannon Beach-style Maine Sister Inn, because Rowan apparently had beautiful coastal properties on both sides of the country, like other people had spare umbrellas. There were paper lanterns, a cake shaped like a rabbit, and a craft table where children could decorate wooden airplanes. Poppy wore yellow boots despite the sun and introduced Avery to every guest as Avery from the wrong plane, but now on purpose. Avery decided that was her official title. Elise's parents came. That was the part Avery feared most. Marion and Ruth were both betas in their late 60s, gentle-faced and careful. They hugged Poppy first, then Rowan, then they looked at Avery with the kind of grief-aware kindness that made pretending impossible. "You're Avery," Marion said. "Yes. Poppy talks about your flowers." Avery smiled nervously. "I hope that's good." Ruth touched the purple star pin Poppy had insisted Avery wear. "She also talks about the plane." "Also good, I hope." Marion's eyes softened. "She says you didn't promise to be okay when you weren't." Avery swallowed. Ruth looked toward Rowan, who stood with Poppy near the cake table. "Our daughter loved honest people," Ruth said, even when she hated what they were honest about. Avery did not know what to say. Ruth saved her. "Thank you for not trying to replace her." Avery's eyes burned. "I couldn't," she said. "I wouldn't. We know." That simple trust nearly undid her. Later, after cake and crafts, and one minor frosting incident involving Captain Broccoli, Poppy asked to take flowers to Elise's bench. This time, Avery helped her make the bouquet without feeling like an intruder. Lavender, yellow roses, rosemary, and one wild daisy, because Poppy said Mama Elise had liked flowers with messy hair. At the bench, Poppy spoke first. "Hi, Mama Elise. I'm 7 now. Avery came on purpose. Mom made cake decisions badly, but the rabbit shape was okay. I miss you. I still think watching over people is creepy, but if you can see us, don't be weird about Mom kissing Avery." Avery made a helpless sound between a laugh and a sob. Rowan covered her eyes. Marion and Ruth laughed softly through tears. Poppy placed the flowers down. Then she looked at Avery. "You can say something if you want." Avery looked at Rowan. Rowan nodded once. Avery crouched near the bench. "Hi, Elise," she said softly, feeling foolish and sincere at once. "You raised a very honest daughter, and you loved a woman who is still learning how not to make feelings into schedules. I care about them. I'll be careful with that." The wind moved through the grass. Poppy leaned against her side. Rowan's hand found Avery's, not gripping, just there. That evening, after Poppy fell asleep exhausted from birthday joy, Avery and Rowan walked down to the beach. The moon was bright, The water moved like dark glass. Rowan looked nervous. That was never a small thing. "What?" Avery asked. Rowan took a folded paper from her coat pocket. Avery stared. "If that is a contract, I'm walking into the ocean." "It is not a contract." "Good. It is a flight itinerary." Avery narrowed her eyes. "For the correct Portland?" Rowan's mouth curved. "For both Portlands." Avery blinked. Rowan handed it to her. It was not a ticket purchase, not a command, not a surprise obligation. It was a plan, drafted, not booked. A possible rhythm for the next 6 months. Avery's work commitments in Oregon, Rowan's hotel openings in Maine and New York, Poppy's school breaks, visits, calls, space. At the bottom, Rowan had written, "Only if this serves your life too." Avery stared at the line until it blurred. "You made a relationship travel proposal," she whispered. Rowan looked pained. "I realize it may be the least romantic object ever produced." "No," Avery said, laughing through tears. "It's very you. That may not be good." "It is," Rowan exhaled. Avery folded the paper carefully. "I want this," she said. "Not all of it exactly. I have edits." Rowan's eyes warmed. "I expected edits." "Good. I'm not moving my life around yours." "I don't want you to, but I want to build a bridge between them." Rowan stepped closer, still asking. Avery met her halfway. The kiss tasted like salt air and birthday cake frosting, and the ridiculous miracle of 2 Portlands. 1 year after the wrong plane, Avery stood in the small airport in Philadelphia again. Not leaving in pieces this time, arriving whole. She had flown in with Rowan and Poppy for the opening of a Vail Atlantic Family Literacy Wing, funded partly by Poppy's insistence that airports needed better books and fewer sad adults. The gate area looked the same, too bright, too loud, too full of people running toward lives they hoped were waiting. Poppy held Avery's hand on one side and Rowan's on the other. "Do you remember?" Poppy asked. Avery smiled. "Vividly. You were very panic. I was extremely panic. Mom was scary." Rowan looked down. "I was managing a security concern." "You were scary," Poppy repeated. "Yes," Rowan admitted. "I was scary." Avery squeezed Rowan's hand. "But useful." "Useful is my brand." "Less than before," Avery said. Rowan's eyes softened. They walked to the big window overlooking the gates. A plane waited outside, lights blinking in the rain. Avery thought about the woman she had been a year ago, coffee-stained, heartbroken, broke, dragging a screaming suitcase onto the wrong flight because she had lost the shape of her own life. She wished she could tell that woman something. Not that everything would be easy, not that getting on the wrong plane would fix her. It had not fixed her. People did not fix people like broken luggage. But sometimes a mistake opened a door. Sometimes a child with a purple star saw your sadness and did not look away. Sometimes a cold alpha mother turned out to be a woman trying so hard not to trap anyone that she learned how to love with open hands. Poppy tugged Avery's sleeve. "I have something," she said. She pulled a sticker from her pocket. Another purple star. This one had tiny gold wings. Avery laughed softly. "Another one?" "For on purpose," Poppy said. Avery crouched. Poppy pressed it to Avery's sweater, right over her heart. "For on purpose," Avery repeated. Rowan watched them with bright eyes. Avery stood and looked at the woman she loved. They were not a perfect family. Perfect was too clean a word for them. They were distance and calendars, grief and laughter, 2 Portlands and 1 very opinionated child, flowers on both coasts, pancakes still slightly burned, and a love that asked before it moved closer. Poppy took both their hands again. Can we get pancakes? She asked. Rowan glanced at Avery. Airport pancakes are a risk. Avery smiled. So was the plane. Poppy grinned. And that worked. Rowan lifted Avery's hand and kissed her knuckles. Right there in the airport where everything had gone wrong before it went right. Avery looked out at the rain shining on the runway and felt the old ache settle into something gentler. This life had not swallowed hers, it had met hers halfway. Oregon, flowers, Rowan, Poppy, 2 coasts, and choices made out loud. The boarding announcement echoed overhead. This time, Avery checked the destination twice. Rowan looked amused. Correct plane? Avery held up the ticket. Correct plane. Poppy looked between them and sighed. Boring. Avery laughed, took the child's hand, and walked with them toward the gate. This time, she was not waiting for eventually. She was already walking into it. The end.